tight, elevate your mind sight. These interviews will ignite your insight. Take notice of the lessons we learned. Why? So you can focus on shining your light bright. We share our greatness and we're courageous. Listen closely because it is contagious. Hit the subscribe, the show's worldwide. Keep an open mind and treasure yourself and shine. Hi, Michelle Morgan here with another episode of Mind Right Game Tight. I'm Michelle Morgan, your host. I'm a transformational sports coach, which means I work with student athletes on the mental aspect of sports and life. I am also the author of How You Triumph in Sports, Tools That Create a Triumphant Life. There's a workbook and a book that talks about all the things that make us great in sports, but most importantly, all those tools and skills that we're learning in sports that we're going to take us into life, because we're going to spend a lot more time in life than we do in sports. To find out more information about myself, you can go to www.vidasoro.com. Today's guest is Memory Roan. She's a great friend of mine. We played basketball together, and she is on an amazing journey herself in her life, going on with having a brand new baby, Mia, and even traveling or living abroad, like getting outside of her comfort zone. So I feel like she's done a lot of that, and she has a lot to share as well through the journey that she's experienced, and we're going to learn a little bit more about her. So thank you, Memory, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I want to ask you, because we met in junior high school, and I just want to ask you, how was your experience as a student athlete? And, how did you feel like you got the most out of your student athlete experience?
I don't feel like I got the most out of it, but I did have a great experience as a student athlete. I had always been an athlete my entire life, probably since I was like 5, running track and stuff. Some crazy point there. I did cheerleading. We'll talk about that another thing. And then getting into basketball. And so basketball is, to me, where I found home with friends. That's where I made my lifelong friends in my life. And the experience, I think the team that we were on together in Oxnard was they forced on us a lot of things that forced us to kind of gel together to support each other. It was hard. And so to do it, we kind of had to lean on each other really hard and support each other. And I think that's why we all are still, a lot of us are still so close, by the years that we were playing together. But in terms of taking advantage of being a student athlete, I did not do that. And I learned that too late, that I should have been doing more and taking more advantage of the opportunity that you have as a student athlete. And so I remember one time we were doing something, you and I, and you were talking about an article. And in the article, they were talking about me. And I looked, I was like, oh, people write about us? And you were like, yeah, there's people at our games all the time. I just was not aware. I did not pay attention. I was not dialed in to that extent. I was like, basketball is something I do because I've become good at it, because this is where my friends are, because, it just became a thing that I did, right? And then there was another instance where one of our coaches, Pat or someone, pulled me aside and they were like, you don't understand how you affect the other girls, right? And I was just like, why are you ragging on me? I'm just a freaking squirrel in here trying to get in that too. But it's trying to show me that you have a different role in a position that you need to be cognizant of, And so I was not aware, and I realized that if I would have been more dialed in to the opportunity, to the athleticism that I could have taken to another level, I could have done some better, more substantial things with that opportunity instead of kind of just throwing it away. So in that, when I did get a scholarship to go to college, thankfully to you, because you were like, man, we have this summer program. You want to go? I was like, sure. I'm not doing anything else. And I was able to get a scholarship after that summer. But even that, I went to college, I played, but I wasn't focused. I wasn't like, okay, this is what I'm here to do. Here's where I'm trying to go. I know that this is a journey and a path that's going to take me there. it was just kind of willy-nilly, like, well, this is what's happening now and this works, right? So if I had any advice to students today, to student athletes specifically, especially the ones who have talent and are good and can really be really good, is to pay attention to that, and to that this idea that you have a lot of time to be great. You don't. Time will pass you by. My birthday was yesterday, and you'll be 37 with a baby and a, you know, and like wondering where did the time go. And so like, you don't have a lot of time. It is of the essence. You need to make the most of the opportunities that come your way now, because if you don't, you'll let them pass you. You'll look up and you'll be like, damn, I should have did better with that. And you don't, that doesn't have to be your story. I also think that we did have really good coaches, and our coaches wanted us to be scholastic. They wanted us to be academically sound and have good grades. So that was very important. They took us and exposed us to college games and NBA and WNBA games so that we could see in operation at a higher level. If I could say one thing that I think was missing from that engagement with our mentors and our coaches, was sitting down with us one-on-one and talking to us about possibility, opportunity, what we want out of life, and a real journey and path to get there. When we graduated, I still wasn't clear if I was going to college. That wasn't something in my home that was pushed. It was either you go to college or you get a job. It was an option. It wasn't you're going to college and you're going to do this. I had a choice. And so like, I still wasn't like, oh, I'm definitely going to USC, and like, I wasn't clear. And so for program managers, for some basketball programs, that is something that I think the one-on-one with your players and really talking to them about the next step of their life and just helping them to define what it is that they want that to look like. Because when you're young, you don't, some people do know, but most don't, right? And so you can't articulate what it is you want. So help, and I think, Michelle, you're doing a lot of that, right? To open up the conversation to students about life, about options, about opportunities, so that they can be clear and decisive and say, okay, I'm going to make this choice and I'm going to make it on purpose. It's not going to be something that just happened to me. So yeah, that would be my...
No, that was a lot. That was great. And just so everybody knows, like, me and Memory, we played basketball in high school at Oxnard High School, which is in Ventura County in California. And then a travel team that, well, I definitely played for them my 8th grade year, Durley Knights, coached by Pat Val. Shout out to the Knights. He put together seniors who had just graduated from high school, and basically we formed another travel team, and then we went to Florida to play. So that is where you had the opportunity where you were seen by, college coaches, where then you went to Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
With Delaware State or?
Delaware State, yeah.
Delaware State University. So my question,
a full ride
scholarship. So that one opportunity by us going to Florida, Memory was able to get a full ride scholarship to Delaware State University. And as she mentioned, she wasn't really thinking about college or even, work either. Like, you were kind of just like, kind of going with the flow and so I guess my question is, like, even after high school, where it was like, okay, like mentorship, did you have mentorship in college?
No. And you don't get it. So maybe some colleges do offer it, but you really don't get that in college. When you go, they have counselors or whatever, or I forget what they call them, but you sit down with them, they talk to you a little bit about your classwork and your coursework, and, oh, you're going to major in this or you're going to major in that. But it's not a real conversation that needs to happen. It's not okay, listen, and this is going a little bit deeper into being a student more than being an athlete. They don't tell you, if you major in this particular thing, and give you a graph that shows you what that career, what the median income is for that career. And then let me show you how long it's going to take for you to pay off this student loan. Like, they don't have these real conversations with you to make you look at your opportunities a different way and the choices that you're about to make, which is, we can have another call about the student loan crisis and how they duped all of us. But people are probably like, she had a full ride. It's a long story. It's a long story. But no, I don't feel like I had the mentoring that I needed to make better decisions. Yeah.
When did you become aware that you didn't have the mentoring though? So when did that happen for you?
Late. I had already graduated. I'd already kind of gone through, finished school, but once I got into the world and started working, and then once you get around other people who had a different experience, and then you're like, oh, you start to realize where the gaps were for you. And there's no point in going back and blaming anyone. Like, life is what it is. It's fair or not fair. It is what it is. But, I know for me, when it comes to my own daughter, the conversation I'm going to have with her, right, to support her life and her choices and her opportunities. I think that, I don't think that we were lucky. We had a really good team and a really good coach who cared about us, cared about our development, cared about our home life. You know what I mean? They did the best that they could. But even with that, there were gaps, I feel, in addressing what the next phase of our life was going to be, right? Those conversations, you just don't have them. People just kind of assume, oh, they'll go to college and they'll do X, Y, and Z. And you do. And then when you're an adult, you look back and you're like, oh, I wish this would have happened or that, or what I find myself saying a lot, I wish someone would have told me that. That's what I say a lot, or I find myself thinking, dang, I wish someone would have told me that. I don't remember anybody telling me this, that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. So what's your advice to, even right now, for any age of a person who is a student, regardless of if you're playing sports or whatever it is you're doing? Because I think a lot of times the question gets asked, like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And sometimes people really don't know. Like, you don't know what you're going to do. It's kind of like, I don't know. And so what's your advice to those people who feel that way? Or even if they do know, like, I have a certain interest or something that I'm passionate about, like, what is your advice? Because one of the main things that you touched on is like mentorship. And so it's like having someone like guide you along the way. So what is your advice for that? Because like you also mentioned that's not something that was talked about inside your household either, right? So, I mean, and like you said, your mom and dad are doing the best that they can with what the tools that they have. So now that we live in an information age where we have so much information, like we can grasp it, we can Google it, we can ask the questions, and we're going to get articles and videos and all types of stuff to pop up. Now that we live in this age and we have those questions, like what is your advice to those people who are like, how do I move forward? Because I don't know, and no one's actually telling me either.
Yeah. Well, like you said about like my mom, great mom, I love her. She's my mom, she did the best that she could. I'm raised by a single mom. But she didn't go to college. Her mom didn't go to college. So she never had those conversations with me about college. She was just excited. She was just excited. Yeah, you got a scholarship. This is awesome. And so the other piece of mentoring and like, this is the next phase of your life, she really didn't know because she had never experienced that phase of life. Right. And so, for parents, what I like to think of is like the Ben Carson example, which is his mom couldn't read, but she knew her son needed to read. You know what I'm saying? And so like, just being aware of your children, like there's things that you don't have or didn't experience, but you can still be aware that what your child's needs are and do what you have to do to facilitate those needs, whether it's via you or someone else, right? Bring someone else in that knows science or whatever, science or math or whatever, work out a deal, like there are things that can be done. So that's my thing on the parent side. And then, I think for the students or for students, you don't know what you don't know. You just can't know sometimes you don't even know what you need. So I think that's why people like you, Michelle, are really important, because when you come in and you talk to them, it can open up a light bulb in their mind to think, oh, I'd love to talk to someone about this or that. It takes a lot of conversation. I'm not a person who is like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do, right? Like, I'm touching into everything. And so you have to have a lot of conversations with people and experiences to start, wiggling through and honing down what that is actually going to be. And I don't think enough students have those conversations. They go to school, they play sports, they talk with their friends about whatever. But real life is going to hit real quick. And you can but my thing is, you can waste so much time. You can waste so much time. So that's what I'd like. Stop wasting time. Let's start talking about your future. Let's start talking about, and even if your future is like, I want to backpack in Europe, or I want to explore. Okay, it's good to be thinking about that, right? So life doesn't just happen to you. You made decisions and that were smart, and based on knowledge and information,
Yeah, and like one of the things that I say is like having your circle of support. So those are the people that you can go to, that you can be vulnerable and honest with, because I think that's not easy for a lot of us to do, because we're like, oh my gosh, what are they going to think about me if I tell them I want to backpack? Because not everybody's experienced backpacking, or maybe they're people's experiences that you're telling. It's only what they've seen in articles they read and on TV, which isn't really realistic unless you experienced it, right? So it's like, but I always say, like, if you have an idea, share that with somebody that you trust, because if they don't know, at least their ears are open so that they can help find people who know what you want to do, so they can say, hey, you know what? I have a student that's interested in backpacking and I need you to talk to them. And more than likely, people want to help other people. So if I backpack, I'm definitely going to share with you like my backpacking experience, because I'm going to say like, yes, it was so cool. Oh, here's certain things that you got to look out for. Like, my experience taught me something, and guess what? I don't want you to go experience the things that I learned lessons in. I'm like, look, this is what you need to do. You need to make sure you get travel insurance. You need to make sure that you check in, like, into your hostel. Like, those are things you do. And I think we got to be open to just opening ourselves up to the possibilities that are out there, and not be afraid of what you can really create in your life, because I think it is scary to share like who you are, what you feel, and where you want to go.
Yeah.
People out there who really do want to help you. And that goes back into, mentorship. Is like, find those people who you trust and share that with them. Because if you don't, you will, like Memory said, everything's going to keep moving. Your life continues to move, and it's better to take it like while you have it, and you have it all the time. Like, there's always someone like around you. Maybe it's not necessarily in your home, but there's someone around you that wants to help you. There's so many resources out there. So it's about, taking that and talking about it. Like, I want to go backpack. I want to be an engineer. Like, it has to come out of your mouth. So, and I think that is the most important piece of it. And then that's how, when it comes out of your mouth, you're going to get the resources and the help that you need that come back. So it's like like you exhale, and then you're going to inhale all the growth and knowledge and wisdom coming from other places to help you grow at the same time.
You know what? Something like we didn't have in our, no, I don't know if any kid has this, but like, say, for example, in high school, they have a class or something where you sit down and they say, okay, tell me what you want to do in life. And you say, oh, I want to be an engineer. I want to go to space. I don't know. And they say, well, how are you going to do that? You say, well, I'm going to go to college. What if you don't get in? Right? Like, making you think about obstacles and hurdles, and like, because that's what happens, right? The plan that you have in life, it never goes the way you freaking think. You're like, and then you have to like maneuver and think quick and be like, okay, how can I make up this? And so they never have that critical thinking piece where you have to really be like strategic and like say, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, what about this? What about this as an option? And let me tell you about this case and what someone did and how they made it happen. And because life is not, you hear certain kind of like anecdotes, like life is not going to give you anything, nothing's free, but no one explains to you what that means. Why does it cost you more when your credit is bad, right? Like getting into finances where they don't teach you about money and how much that affects us in our adult lives. Like, I don't remember what the hell I learned in geography. I mean, well, I guess I should. Lord help us. Don't ask me to name all 50 states, but you know what I'm saying? But like, I think it would have been useful to have a real finance class to talk about your personal finances, right? So the on the flip side of that, the other part of it is this is, for those who read the word or don't read the word, there's a scripture that says, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. This is not a Bible thing. People calm down. So like, long story, some of these things are relative just in life in general. It means, the word let means it is something that you are allowing, right? Which means you have to allow the information to sink in, and then you have to act on that information. So you can have as many mentors, you can have people who love you, who try to tell you and try to teach you and everything. But if you do not hear that information and act on it, you'll do nothing with it, and you will literally stay stagnant. So that's something for me that I've learned the hard way, just to be honest, is sometimes not even being able to say, no one told me that. No, somebody told me. They told me a couple of times. I didn't listen, right? I had a hard head. I didn't listen. I did what I wanted to do. And it led me to whatever place that I had to learn a hard lesson. So, I think that kind of a conversation, those don't really happen when we're young. There's scolding, and there's, telling you, oh, you hard-headed, giving you stuff like that, but not an actual, like, let me have a conversation with you about the lesson that this could be, right? But I think people do the best they can. I really do. And like you said, we live in this age of information and technology. There's nowhere in the world where you can get as much information as you can in the US. We don't have strict laws on our internet, so you can search and find just about anything you want to know. You don't have to go to Britannica. Like, we used to have those old Britannica books. Oh God, the research of it all. So there's another level now of the next generation that you don't really have any excuses. You can know and find information on just about anything.
Yeah, and like going back to what you said in terms of like things being taught in the schools, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I wrote, but then I created the workbook, because for me, it's not just about reading something, it's about, like you said, putting it into action. Like, I can tell you, memory, don't touch the hot stove, but you got to take action to not touch the hot stove, right? Everything comes down to action. I can say, you know what, you want to go backpacking? I can set you up with my friend, meet him at Starbucks on Thursday at 4:00. But if you don't go, then you're never going to get the receiving end of that. And so for me, it's the workbook. So anybody out there who's looking for that for their schools, for their home, sports teams, whatever it is, this is the reflection piece. And this is not about sports. This is about life. So I ask questions that are reflection questions about the person that we are talking to. So right now, the book is being implemented into schools because we need the personal development piece. And it also goes back to, I think, like what you're saying, like, oh, you're hard-headed. I think it also goes back to, like, for my experience, lack of confidence in myself. So, or I don't believe in myself, or I believe if I listen to someone who's done it before, I'm like, well, but then I'm going to miss out on that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the hard way. And it's like, we're not listening to our internal because we don't trust ourselves yet. And so that is also the point of the workbook, is so that we can learn to love ourselves and trust ourselves and really believe in like what we feel, because we do know. But, if I'm dating someone and I'm like, this ain't working out, but then it's like, I don't want to break up because like, I think of all the good times, or what if I find someone else who, don't find anyone else soon? There's all these like thoughts that go into like, I'm not good enough, which is a lack of self-confidence in myself and self-love. that I'm going to go ahead and take the way that people be like, you're being hard-headed, you know? So it's like,
Right.
that is why I do that, is because like, I don't really believe in myself yet. And so that is the purpose of the workbook and the book, is because you got to act and you got to reflect and say like, how can I begin that process of really believing and loving myself and knowing like my actions, when I stay true to them, they're going to create eventually, you know, what I see for myself in life. It might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen next month, but it's going to happen. And that to me is like, what is it? Cutting the learning curve in half. You know, like I don't even do half the things I did. You know, I knew better, but I didn't decide to do better. So it's like wanting to create that belief in ourselves to do that, and say yes to ourselves more rather than yes to other things first.
I love that in terms of introducing that, because we do that a lot when we're older, right? All of a sudden people are going to therapy. My girl, people going to therapy. And so it's like, it's a reactive response to life. But imagine if you had the skill set to talk through these things as when you're younger. Maybe we might be healthier in our adult life if we learn some of these skills when we're younger, but you don't. You just go through life. You go through life. You become an adult and you're like, oh, real life, it's hit the fan. And then one day you wake up and you're like, I'm screwed up.
Well, man,
I'm screwed up.
I think of this too. Like,
I need help.
Yeah, one of the reasons like that go into the book is like, as a kid, like I'm experiencing things, right? Maybe I'm experiencing things like within my home where I'm like, this doesn't make me feel good. Like, you know, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing going on between my parents. Who am I going to go talk to? When I am seeing my friends and their families, everyone's like, hi, got problems. They ain't got problems. Like,
Right.
we're happy all the time. And then we grow up and then we're like, we talk about each other's past and we're like, oh, so you were going through it too. But we don't feel like anyone's going to understand us, right? Yeah. So we hold that in, and then we're also learning by example in our households. And so we act like that, right? Yeah. Start to make decisions based on that. And we're kind of like, why? And it's like, because we weren't able to express, we didn't feel like we could express ourselves. So someone could say, you know what, yes, what you're seeing, you know, in your house, it's not right, but how would you move forward from that? How are you going to heal? How are you going to forgive that person and yourself so that you don't take these same action steps as well? Like, it's like repeating the cycle, right? Because it's all bottled in, and then later I'm going to like express it, but that's like the volcano erupting at that point.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned, because I know when I played basketball, I was very passionate, and a lot of times people would tell me, you have anger management problems. And it wasn't, now looking back, once again, going back to those sit down conversations, right? That we had great programs, but it was those sit down conversations that we had. It was like, it wasn't anger management problems. I just knew, like, I felt like my dad was cheating and I didn't have nowhere to express it to. I can't go tell my mom and my dad, I want to like get this out of my system. So I keep that in my system and I act out angrily. And it's like, you have anger management problems. It's like, no, Michelle needed someone to talk to and have that mentorship and counsel. And that's what I needed. It wasn't anger management. And so I think sometimes we get that confused, and it's like, no, this person has a lot going on inside of them that they ain't letting out. And I think that's what it was. So I look back and say, like, that's why I do what I do, because we take our actions differently, right? Like your anger, you might do something different than I would act out. Maybe my anger, I just go crying and I play basketball and I just act whatever. But maybe you take it out and you don't have sport to take it out on. You take it out somewhere else in public and you don't know how those consequences are going to affect you. So I think that is something that the conversation needs to open up, and so that our, you know, the youth have more like outlet of safety to like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is that it's all about, a lot of it too is about access, right? And so I have some friends, or I know someone who works for a private school, and they have in-house therapy for all the students, in-house, just available, right? I don't ever remember anyone at Oxnard telling us, hey, if you need to talk to anyone, you can go from the hours of whatever, and have someone walking around saying, hey guys, if you ever want to come talk to me, to just release stuff, right? So it's access, right? Not that elite people don't have problems or that they don't come out of high school and college with issues. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying it's helpful, right, when you do have the access for certain things, and even being able to access the right language and words. Maybe you do want to communicate it, but you don't know how, right? I don't even know how to verbalize this feeling. I don't know what this is. I just know I like it or I don't like it. I know it bothered me or it didn't. And I either brush it under, I ignored it and whatever. Maybe you need someone to tell you that's a problem and a red flag, and you didn't know. And a lot of times parents don't really sit down with their kids and say, hey, how was your day? What happened? Did anything, how, and then, and go deeper with their children and say, well, what do you mean when you say that? What do you mean? Because the language that is used sometimes doesn't really identify what it is. So you got to keep going deeper to really dig into it. So when you say, it was okay, what does that mean? Parents don't do that. You get home, did you do your homework? Yes, no, okay. Dinner's at 5. You know what I'm saying? Take a bath, go to bed. Like they're not that they're mean, but they're just busy. They're busy, and having that one-on-one time with their kids just doesn't happen, right? So I do think like what you're doing, opening up the conversation, giving kids a safe space to talk, and helping them to kind of direct that energy in a great and positive place is really beneficial for student athletes, especially because I think student athletes have more pressure on them to perform, especially if you're a good athlete and people are looking at you and writing about you, and you're just on the spotlight more. There's more pressure on you to do well. So now you got to do well in class and out of class. And then for us in our program in life, right? We won't even talk about some of those stories, but in the community, right now, people know who you are. You can't, get by with doing crazy stuff with your friends in the street. So it's a lot of pressure when you're that young. But yeah.
Yeah, and pressure is like so many different things. Like even if you're not a student athlete, it's like, well, you'll be the first one to go to college, or we need help with like making sure you get good. Like there's so many levels to it, right? That it's like it just kind of wraps all around, and there could be so much tied into not just like the expectation, but just the expectation without having to release like how I really feel.
Right.
And that can be like a lot.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Memory. I really appreciate like having this conversation and you sharing. And I feel like you definitely have a lot more to share too, because you touched on like a lot about mentorship and like going through that process, like as maybe like a preteen teenager, but then there's also that like college aspect. And then also like being able to hear like, okay, girl, you got a full scholarship. How you got loans? Because I think like, I don't think you're the only one, right? And, how I think that is an important conversation to have, because also like, because you experienced it, we need more people sharing their experiences so that, okay, I know what not to do. And like, how did you do that? Okay, I don't want to do that.
Yes.
Did you get a full scholarship and now you owe? So I need to know like what you did, and I need to do the opposite of that.
Okay.
Important, because like, I can't say I know anybody besides you that I've heard that story from.
Oh, lovely. So I'm the only one. Thanks, Michelle.
You're the only one I know, but it opens up the conversation, because some people they don't get the scholarship, but they have the loans by attending college.
Yeah.
So like those are questions and just like little things to keep in mind when I'm preparing myself to go to college.
Okay. Well, I can actually I can really help you by telling you what not to do. I mean, this is a laundry list.
All right, stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to go talk about what not to do.
What not to do.
What to do. Definitely, for sure. But once again, Memory, thank you. And if there's any like last words that you want to leave us with.
Well, thank you for having me, Michelle. This was great. And I'm so grateful to share my experience in life, because a lot of times, especially for me, that the voice of like what you have to say is not valuable, and that who will it really help, right? This is like my first time doing something like this, like openly, like it feels publicly, it's not, but like just kind of talking about personal life experiences and how those have affected me, and my reflection on them. And, hopefully I hope that it does help someone. I hope that if anything, I could stop someone from making the similar mistakes that I made, so that they don't have to get to this place and, backtrack so much. But yeah, so I appreciate you giving me the time to share, and I'd love to do it again.
We'll definitely do it again. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because the purpose of, what I do and getting these interviews in is allowing people to realize that you don't have to be the celebrity for your voice to matter. Everyone's voice matters. Everyone has a story, and your story is there to share so that others can learn from it and be inspired by it. But also, when we tell our story, we learn something about ourselves, and it's also like a healing process that we have. By like, oh yeah, I said that out loud, and it's like, okay, it makes me aware of like where I've come from, where I'm at, and also it helps me like, okay, I'm learning and I'm growing moving forward too as well. So thank you for sharing. And before you go, you have to finish the sentence.
Oh, okay.
I am grateful for.
I am grateful, well, for my baby girl, Mia, because she's just so awesome. And for being, I turned 37 yesterday, so I'm grateful for 37 years.
Whoop, whoop.
Woo.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Birthday to you. All right. Well, thank you, Memory, for being on the Mind Right Game Tight show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Treasure yourself and shine.
Thank you. Bye.